Hello to our friends at Intero Real Estate. It's Mark Rafail again with the Rafail Insurance Agency. Except this time I got a haircut. I know it's COVID. It's a little hard these days to go out and get your haircut. My wife cut it, so I hope she did a good job. But flood insurance in Houston, to me, is one of the most important coverages to talk about, and it gets oftentimes swept under the rug. So I want to continue with another part of the flood insurance saga, right? So I'm going to go through this PowerPoint I put together, picture of the team, awards, and history on the flood insurance programs. Been around for a while, but the definition of flood. Generally speaking, if two buildings next to each other flood, it can be considered a flood. And it's oftentimes not just natural rising waters. Hey, it could be the kid that hit the fire hydrant and water starts to rise from the outside coming in. So it could be more than just natural rising waters. Availability, what kind of structures can get flood insurance? Oftentimes, it needs to be finished construction, right? It can't be in the middle of construction most of the time to get flood insurance. Oh, and then the flood zones. Oftentimes we get real confused with the XAE, to keep it simple. High risk and low risk. If you're in a high risk zone, it's going to require an elevation certificate that determines, exactly how high the structure is off the ground, which affects the rate. Believe it or not, places in Bel Air, one house can be completely different elevation than the house next to it. So it's not, just based the same rate per neighborhood. It can be different when you're in a high risk zone. But if you're in a low risk zone, which means FEMA hasn't come in and made you get it yet, but give it time, guys. They're gonna rezone eventually. They're so far behind FEMA to come in and really zone and map Houston. So while you can get flood insurance, especially at a grandfathered rate of $516 a year generally for the primary home, even if they come in a year later and say you're in a high risk zone, you don't have to get an elevation certificate. You're grandfathered in, unlike some of the new neighbors coming in. The other thing I want to talk about is you always hear people say, oh, I'm in the 100-year floodplain, the 500-year floodplain, the 1,000-year floodplain, right? Well, just so you guys know what that means, it doesn't mean you're going to flood maybe every 100 years, right? All that means is you have a 1 out of 100 chance of flooding every time it rains, or 1 out of 500, which is lower than 1%, right? Or 1 out of 1,000 chance of flooding every time it rains. Well, the reality is we're getting these 1 out of 100 year rainstorms a couple times a year. So in turn, that higher the risk of you flooding. And with apartment complexes being built and freeways going to 24 lanes and concrete jungles and our unpredictable weather, there's really no telling when and where we can flood. So let me turn my phone down. And then let's mosey on. This kind of talks about elevated structures and how it could affect your annual premium, guys. Some flood insurance facts. A couple summaries of coverage, which if you guys, I'll put my email at the end of this. I can email everybody exact PDFs of anything they need. Did you know? We talked about, this is 25 to 30% of claims happen in the low risk areas. Reality is half the people don't get flood insurance, sadly. So it might be 70% of flooding occurs in the low risk area, but 25 to 30% that have flood insurance report it. So we don't actually know a lot of times if they're not making a claim who's flooding. But generally speaking, most claims happen in the low risk area. And then we talked about advising, never tell your client you're not in a flood zone. Keep yourself out of the courtroom, guys. This is a little chart of rates from a primary home to a rental home. And you can't see the personal contents. Let me see if I can move my, oh, there it is. You can see even a renter, somebody coming to Houston, they have no idea about our exposures here of flooding. A lot of people in Katy would have loved to know, and they could have got $50,000 in coverage for $265. And if you're a landlord, you're going to notice they charge a little more. There's a surcharge because it's not your primary home. But if this is one of your biggest investments, a lot of people would have gladly spent the $700, $741, to gut their house up to $250,000. And although you may not have $100,000 in contents, because you're not living there, FEMA automatically includes it, believe it or not. But at least it will cover your washer, dryer, and any appliances you do leave. And then lo and behold, there's your primary home rates. And remember, FEMA will give you the full value to replace or reconstruct your building if you insure for the maximum value or the highest amount for your reconstruction. If you get partial coverage, like $30,000 for the building and $12,000 for contents, and it runs $236 a year, they may give you depreciation when it comes to the reconstruction of your house. And a lot of people like to avoid that. But hey, if you're getting 80% of what it takes to fix something, or 90%, it's better than taking a loan out like most people had to if they did not have flood insurance. And then let's go back here, see if I can. Hey, and contact us. So if you have any questions, you can contact myself. I have Megan Pence in here on call Monday through Friday to check if your house has had any claims, if what flood zone it's in, and quote you in minutes in many cases for flood insurance. Here's our email, and we were voted Houston Chronicle Best of the Best in 2020. So if you don't have a good relationship with an insurance agent, let me move this over. You can see the logo. If you don't have a good relationship, we'd love the opportunity to work with you. Thank you, my friends at Intero, and I wish you all the best. Bye now.